And then all of a sudden, like 5 or 10 minutes, she just hits me with a direct question. And it was the mother of all keywords. And it was this keyword that gave it away eventually. And there was no going back from this. And she goes, James, are you here? All right, 30 days in Vegas. I have an interesting story for you today. It's actually a story that I've never told anybody. I've never told a soul. I've actually just always kept it to myself, but I figure what the heck. It's an interesting story. I'll get your take on it, and I'm going to talk about that here just in a few seconds. But before I do that, I have to ask a question. What is the longest slot session you've ever had, ever? I just had my longest one ever, and I know that you veterans and you Vegas hardcores are going to laugh because mine was only 20 minutes. But here is the thing, or actually two things. Number one, I really don't play slots. Okay, so I really don't have the attention span for it. And number two, when I do play slots, it's basically for you guys on the channel. You know, I'll put in $50, $60, or $100 in a high stakes slot machine. Those are typically at least $5 a pull. And if you know my videos and know my luck, typically, almost always, my slot session ends after 45 seconds. Usually they last no more than 90 seconds. On this slot session, I put in $100 and it was like 17 minutes long. It was like almost 20 minutes. The machine wouldn't pay me anything big, but also wouldn't pay me anything small. It just kept me there. And I think for $5 a pull and only putting in $100, being at that machine, constantly hitting that button for 17, 18 minutes, it was a long session. I actually was quite relieved when that credits hit 0, because all I actually wanted to do was walk away from that machine. It's too long for me. Let me know your longest slot session ever in Vegas. I've heard some crazy stories, but let me know what yours is. Okay, this is a story that I've never told anybody. It happened to me during the most legendary Vegas trip ever, and I really was kind of oblivious to it for a couple reasons. Number one, I'm not about that lifestyle. Call me old school, call me classical, call me traditional, call me romantic, call me boring, call me whatever you want to call me, but that lifestyle just isn't for me. Never gone down the rabbit hole or let alone even put my toe in the water because it doesn't interest me. So because I've never even paid attention to it, I had no idea of like the terminology and the code words that were being thrown at me. You know, it's interesting. Let's use the term sack, for example. That's going to have a much different meaning at a grocery store than it is in football. And if you don't follow football and someone keeps on talking about sacks, you're going to be like, what the heck? Same thing about the word Adam. It can have two totally different contexts. You go to church, a Christian church, and ask about Adam, you're typically going to get one response. And if you go to a rave and ask about Adam, you are going to get a totally, totally different response. You know, so it's all about context and it's all about meaning. And because my mind is never on that, I kind of had no idea about what was really going on in this conversation. So I was chilling at one of the nicest hotels in Las Vegas, at one of the nicest lounges in Las Vegas. And as always, I'm just chilling at the bar, minding my own business. And I was working with the bartender, I mean, I know him. He is an acquaintance of mine, and we were doing like a bunch of fun off-menu drinks. And the lady next to me just took notice of me. I think she saw like what we were doing with the drinks, and then she starts with a compliment. She goes, "Oh wow, I really love your boots." And you know, just a compliment, and I do get compliments on my boots all the time, so it was pretty just common to me. And I'm like, "Oh, thanks, you know, they're from Italy and I got them custom made and I usually only wear them in Vegas or Miami." It's pretty much like my canned response whenever I get that compliment. But I noticed that she's next to a guy, and I'm almost entirely certain that they are together. I'm just getting that vibe. And typically when I encounter this happens for me from time to time, whenever a lady is with a guy and a lady is interested in me. And what I mean by interested is that she's asking questions. She's talking to me. If she's doing those things, technically, she is interested. And even if it's platonic, and even if it's kind of innocuous, there's still interest. And it almost always just doesn't go well. The guy next to her is usually awkwardly isolated, emasculated. He gets jealous, you know, he gets a little angry. I don't want to deal with it. And even though there's really nothing that's going to happen, I just don't want the bad vibes. and I just try to be mindful. So I almost always just diffuse it, right? Real short answers, watch my body language, pivot my attention back to the bar, put my phone up, end the conversation, right? Well, these questions continue. Even though I obviously am like disarming the conversation, they continue. Well, how long are you in Vegas for? Where are you staying? What do you like to do? And at this point, I'm like, wow, this person really wants to talk to me, because at this point, I've ended the conversation at least once or twice now. So I look over and I just glance at the guy, and there isn't any jealousy. There aren't any bad vibes. In fact, he's looking right at me, eye contact, and he also seems like genuinely interested in what I have to say. I'm like, huh, this is fascinating. Maybe they are just like authentically interested in me, or just a really cool, like, casual conversation couple. So I'm like, okay. So I open up a little bit. Yeah, I'm in Vegas for a little bit longer. I try to switch it up and visit different hotels, blah, blah, blah. I proceed to end the conversation again and then focus my attention back on the drinks and whatever else. And I get other questions like, where's the best place to hang out during the day? What's your favorite pool? What should we do here and there? And she's obviously like trying to have conversation. And because the guy isn't really like upset about it, I give a little bit because I have my guard down. Again, I don't know what's going on. Just wait. So I'm like, yeah, I really like Stadium Swim. And, these are some of my favorite restaurants. And here's kind of where you want to stay and blah, blah, blah. And then the code words start, right? She goes, well, we should hang out. We're super outgoing. Okay, but I didn't know what was going on, so I didn't pick up on the outgoing. We're free-spirited, we're really adventurous. We just like to have a good time. And again, because I'd never gone down that rabbit hole, I never pay attention to that lifestyle, I'm not picking up on it yet. In fact, I'm quite oblivious. And I'm not hanging out with them anyway. I have stuff to do. I like to be a lone wolf in Vegas, right? That way I can keep my options open. Eagles never fly in flocks. Eagles usually fly alone. So I'm just like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, maybe this and that. I just try to be nice and courteous, but it's not happening. But they don't know that. Apparently I'm giving off like the wrong vibe, or I'm being too friendly or too outgoing, because I think they're getting like the impression that like I'm down for it, and it hasn't really got to that yet. I mean, this is the process of it. I'm just not picking up on it. So the conversation dies down. I think I ended up talking to the bartender, who's an acquaintance of mine, as I said, and I think someone else came up to me and asked what drink I had, and that naturally ended the conversation over here. And it was radio silent from this couple over here for like 5 or 10 minutes, and I thought it was done. And then all of a sudden, like 5 or 10 minutes, she just hits me with a direct question, and it was the mother of all keywords. And it was this keyword that gave it away eventually, and there was no going back from this. And she goes, James, are you here with an LS? And I'm thinking to myself, LS? Like the trim on a Camaro? Like a Chevy Camaro LS? And I'm thinking to myself, like, LS, like Lesotho? The obscure landlocked country in South Africa? I'm thinking LS, like LSD? Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds? Like, what the heck is an LS? And this is all going through my mind very rapidly. And I turn around to her, I go, what is an LS? And she goes, you don't know. And I go, well, I can guess, but like, no, I don't know. What is an LS? And she goes, no, I can't tell you. I'm like, well, this is weird. You ask me a question, but you don't want to tell me the origin of it or the meaning of it? And then I press her. I go, no, tell me. You can tell me anything. Because, I mean, I'm super outgoing, and I've been around the block. There's nothing that's going to shock me. Just tell me what an LS is. And she goes, oh, no, it's nothing. It's just a question I had. Just forget it. I'm like, are you sure? Because now I'm befuddled. I'm puzzled. It's a very strange situation for me. And she goes, yeah. So I'm like, okay, whatever. Didn't think twice about it. And then like a minute or two after that, they left. And I was like, well, that's peculiar. Like, not only did she ask a question, she wouldn't give me the meaning or origin of it, and then they just abruptly leave. But I'm curious by nature, okay? And now my wheels are turning a little bit. I'm like, that just didn't make sense. That situation just was weird to me. It just, I do conversation for a living. After being In sales for a long time, if there's something I know, it's art of conversation, and something about that conversation just didn't flow right. It just wasn't. I don't know. It just didn't feel right. So of course, like, I look it up. I look up LS, and I didn't really find anything until I Googled couple LS, right? And for those of you that know where I'm going, you obviously already know where it's going. LS stands for lifestyle. They're all about the lifestyle. And I'm like, oh, obviously, right? Because I'm ignorant. I'm never done it, not about it, will never do it, okay? Just not my style. So now the whole situation is like making total sense to me, right? From the compliment to begin with, the interest, outgoing, adventurous, free-spirited, like to have fun. I think it's because I was so like just generally just like answering their questions and outgoing, and maybe it was like the way I was dressed and my body language or my demeanor. I don't know. Like clearly I was putting out some type of vibe where they felt comfortable enough to hit me with the LS at the end, the mother of all keywords, at least in my perspective. But yeah, that kind of imploded the situation. All right, so that's it. That's the time a swinger couple tried to seduce me in Las Vegas, and really they did it very artfully. They were very crafty because they did it without me even knowing it. They were using keywords, adventurous, free-spirited, outgoing, fun, the way that she hit me with a compliment. It was very, very tastefully done, I must say. It was obviously they did it in a way that I had no clue about it, but obviously I was putting out some type of vibe. Obviously I was putting out some type of energy where they continued to press me even after all that conversation. But they hit me with the mother of all keywords at the end, and after I didn't respond to that, after I had no clue, obviously they left and their pursuit went elsewhere.